Okay. It's preparing it. Hmm. All right, so I see it on now. Close. So we'll see if anybody comes on here.
Okay, that'll be interesting. What's the UFC this weekend? I haven't even really looked.
Hold on a second. I don't want two voices. Let me stop this one. I stopped that one. Okay.
Oh, is UFC 298 this weekend?
By staying in the meeting, you consent to sharing your information with access. Can watch her. Got it. Okay. Yeah, it's a good card, huh?
Yeah, Volkanovski and Topuria.
So what I'll do is I'll put the live on my phone. That way I don't hear it on my
Whitaker,
computer.
Paulo Costa, Cejudo against some guy.
Yeah, it's
Another one of those Russians.
he's going against Marab. That should be a good fight too.
I'll tell you, it's a funny story. I wonder if Roman Kopylov, he's 32. So how long ago is the 90s? So 97 is about 25 years ago. He could be the son of
Yeah,
guy named
Kopylov.
Kopylov.
Yeah,
Yeah. Do you remember Kopylov,
yeah,
the
yeah.
original?
Of course, man. Leg lock master
Yeah, what was his
in
first name?
rings. I don't even remember. It looks
I'll
like
look
there's
it
some
up.
people coming up in here. Let's see here. I'm gonna put ask Miguel. Ask Miguel live. Let's see if I can pin it. Pin message. Okay. I'm gonna put it here.
I think it's Andrei Kopylov.
Yeah,
And
Andre.
Andrei Kopylov is at this time he's 58.
He was a
So yeah,
legend,
he
man.
he could definitely be the guy's father. Now, he has not a great record on Sure Dog, but he was older by the time he fought in this stuff, and he pulled off a few wins.
I think I'm gonna share it. See if I
He
can
went the
share it.
distance with Big Nog. He went the distance with Arona. Tommy Sauer knocked him out. He fought 6 minutes against Sperry. Sperry's the guy who told me that the Brazilians called him the grandfather shoemaker. That was their nickname for him because he just kind of looked like not much, but he was tough as hell.
Let me see if I can share this out somewhere. Hold on. Copy link. Okay. I'm gonna share it out right quick. Share it out on like Twitter or something.
Yeah, do Twitter, do Facebook, do
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, do the three.
See how it works. I should have changed the name of it, huh? It just
What's the
says
name?
Todd Atkins Zoom meeting.
Yeah, we probably could. Yeah, you could probably still do that, right? Let's see what
Mm,
it looks. Are you on? So we're live on your page, right?
we're live on YouTube right now.
Okay, so let me go to YouTube and see what it looks like from here. Okay. Now, my subscriptions, I've got a subscription to Mystery Science Theater 3000. I don't know if you remember that show. And when they go live, it tells me, and I've got a little red symbol next to it, like a live symbol. And your channel doesn't have that. However, I do see the click. I clicked on it, and it looks like we're about a few minutes behind or a minute behind on. Yeah, right now I'm telling you on the show about Mystery Science Theater, so it's about 10 to 15 seconds behind.
I'm not even listening to it on the other one, so that way I don't get to, see
Yeah,
that kind of
I'm
stuff.
gonna turn it off so I don't get the
Yeah.
double hit either. And I guess it's chat, so I got to look at the chat for the word. Okay, so it's not going to be in the comments or anything like that.
Okay.
So we'll see. That'll be
I'm gonna
interesting
share
to
it on
find out.
Instagram right now.
I wonder if anybody out there could corroborate if we have any Russian friends or anybody like that that could tell us if this Roman Kopolov is Andrei Kopolov's son. Because Andrei was a sambo master. He was just old by the time he got there, you know. So he's 58 now, according to SureDog. So that means that, let's say, well, let's look at his career. He fought in 2010. He came back and fought a couple of fights, which is 13 years ago. So he would have been about 45, and he was over 35 by the time he fought in rings,
Yeah.
especially the late rings run. He fought in Holland the first time.
I'm putting it on Instagram now. I'm gonna put it in some groups.
Yeah, and then later on when you get a chance, all right, well, you'll be able to save the file too, like so our live file. You should take this one down if no one comes on or anything like that. But if we get some content or whatever, you can do that. You should also you've been editing and putting the girls' videos in there and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like it would be worth your time if you took a minute to edit out things like, hey, hold on, my phone's ringing, or hey, I gotta go to the bathroom, or stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
So I know, believe me, I know it's boring.
It takes time. All right, I'm not saving these, so it's not really a big deal.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. But yeah, it does look like a good card this week. Roman Kopolov he's 32, so he's not a youngster either. 12-2. He's started out 0-2 in the UFC, and he's pulled off 4 wins in a row. KO, 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 KO. So he's getting his KOs in.
Let's see what we got here.
I guess he was undefeated heading into the UFC. He's got hair, so it's hard to see if there's a family resemblance. There might be. Well, I don't know. Thick eyebrow, brow bones, big nose, kind of could. I don't know. Not able to say off of the family resemblance thing, but hey, it's got to be his kid, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah. Andy says, because he doesn't speak Chinese, he doesn't really up on the Chinese side of it, but he has some friends that he's gonna kind of do some research with. But he hasn't seen billboards, no. I don't know. Maybe they don't put up billboards there.
Well, it I don't know. I don't know what works for them over there, but a big social media campaign would seem to be something that um even we get, their social media rubs off on us, and even in mainstream news, CNN will report, oh, this incident here got major social media attention in China, and that's how they do a lot of their propaganda. Keep in mind the rumor, or maybe more than a rumor, but the rumor is that TikTok and some of the other big social media companies are sort of controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. So it can become all propaganda. They can remove what they don't want, and they can put on there what they want, but whatever's on there gets mass distribution. So
Hmm.
if it's on there, people kind of take it as the party line, and we'll see, It'll be interesting to see because, like I said, if they're not doing that, then they're probably dropping the ball a little bit, because it is an opportunity. I think they're it's a big opportunity.
Yeah. Are
Did you
you
see?
monitoring anything on YouTube or no?
I have the feed up. I have the volume down, but I have the feed up, and there we
Okay.
are. But nobody else has checked in to ask anything live yet, and that's
Okay.
okay. I kind of jumped on there. There's two people watching, so it might be me and you.
Hmm. Don't worry, I'm passing it around.
Are you on the feed as well on YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it's right now it's me and you. Did you see Strickland and Jake Paul are going back and forth?
Yeah, maybe we should talk about Strickland sometime because I think some of the stuff's going to his head, don't you?
Yeah, I do think that there's an aspect of he's in new territory and how he's going to react. It's funny, a few of the clips I saw about that were uh somebody asked Dana about Strickland, and I don't know who he had gotten into it with, but he had gotten into it with somebody, and Dana said, Sean really shouldn't be allowed around humans. It's not just, it's not the person or anything like that. It's anybody with Sean you got to worry about. Um, and Sean shit all over Jake Paul, but actually, you know, um, didn't rule out the fight. He kind of was like, yeah, he said he asked Hunter Campbell about doing the fight.
Right.
And he said the Hunter Campbell told him that basically most of the tickets that go out for those fights are given away for Jake Paul's fights, and um, that most of his audience is underage people who don't buy pay-per-views. So it's not something that interests him that much. And so he told
Hmm.
him, to get some adult fans and come and see him. So yeah, like I say, he's not shutting the door on that or that payday or anything like that. So yeah, that could be a sign that's going to his head that all of a sudden now, the working man's fighter kind of guy wants to do the crossover fight for a payday.
Right.
And he
And
could he could
he
talk about that.
beat up that influencer.
Yeah, and there's something to be said for that message. That was the mission for Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz should have been the one who sent that message and took care of business there, and he didn't do it. I don't know. Did you see his brother Logan? I guess his name is. He has made enough of a stand in the WWF or WWE where he actually held a North American title or U.S. title or one of those titles. I don't think it was the Intercontinental belt, but he held a belt, and you know he was in the Royal Rumble, and they gave him a big spot in the Royal Rumble. Did you see it? Did you see what he did?
Yeah. No.
Okay, well, it was interesting. I'll tell you, in terms of like athleticism and the move, it was interesting because what he kind of called out, he was in there kind of getting by, maybe eliminated somebody or something like that where they're giving him a rub. And then before he got tossed, he was also spending a lot of time outside the ring. Like you go through the bottom rope. The Royal Rumble, you're eliminated by being thrown out over the top rope. So you go through the bottom rope, you're outside, you can kind of catch a breather. And he spent a lot of time like that where they were announcing there's 4 guys left and there were really 5 with him. Um, and I think it was Ricochet, who's a high flyer, and him were outside the ring on opposite ends, yelling at each other, and they both jumped on the top rope, jumped and hit head and jumped in the middle of the ring where they kind of lariated each other or clotheslined each other in the air. And yeah, whatever you want to say about it, that's a bump. That's not a move for everybody. So um yeah, those guys are picking their spots well to look good and look like, yeah. So now he looks like a professional wrestler, or people are taking him serious as a professional wrestler. But to me, professional wrestling is a field where they can target kids. They always have. Hulk Hogan with the prayers and the vitamins and that line of thinking and super hero type of behaviors are more appealing to younger people too. I think so. Um, Fascinating. The Paul brothers are a little bit of a media machine, and they make money. They generate their money and stuff. But they would write Sean a check and see what happens. And Sean was pretty confident. He was pretty confident he put a stop to it. But you know, like I said, that was what Nick Diaz was supposed to do, and Nick didn't do it. And so I don't know how that goes. I wonder if they approach him and say, hey, take it easy, or, here's an extra X, let's do it this way. Who knows if that went on with Nick or Nate rather. Nate's not the kind of guy who would say yes to that, right?
Right.
But he's at the end of his career and money talks. Sean, it would be bad for Sean's career now because he's still active, and active in the UFC. He's in the title picture. Probably wants his title back, right? It would be bad for him to take a loss to this guy. So you would think he would come out and try. And, Sean's boxing is actually, you know, I don't know. What we've seen on display is probably better than Nate. Maybe we overcredited Nate's boxing because Nick is a it's sometimes Nick and Nate we get them mixed up, but I think it was Joe Rogan who actually said that you know, Nick's actually the better fighter there. Wonder what people would ask about if they just had a cold question for me. It's like, who are you? What are you doing?
No, they know who you are at this point. I think that's a pretty good idea.
We will see. We will see if we get, but at least we've got the functionality down. We're live on the site. We know we can do it. You can do a little advertising campaign. Maybe you want to do it. I get my operation tomorrow, so maybe Sunday night we could go. You could do. Maybe you could spend tomorrow and Saturday putting out some clips saying we'll be live this weekend on Sunday night at a certain time, and then we could try it again.
Yeah. If we give them the exact time.
Yeah, that way, people at least will know that it's going on and stuff like that. We could sit here for a little bit.
Yep. I'm almost done distributing it out.
Okay, cool. Look at what the rest of the calendar looks like for this weekend.
But the UFC tomorrow's got a couple of good fights on it. Topuria and
Yeah,
Volkanovski and the Cejudo and Marab.
Costa and Whitaker.
Costa and Whitaker, and it's also got a Gary and Neal.
Yeah.
So yeah, that one's worth watching.
kind of a good lineup, with in terms of like because it's more up and comers and stuff. It's comparable to what they're putting out for 300. Like I said, I don't think 300 is that bad of a card either. Really, people are criticizing it, but it's really not bad. A lot of crossroad guys, a lot of people on there, that need the wins and stuff like that. So we'll see.
Mhm. So I put it out, so we'll see what happens. Put out pretty much everywhere I could. Now it says one person. I can't tell.
I got two watching now. Started streaming 20 minutes ago, so it says that.
I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Yeah, who knows? No one's commented though, so that's a good sign that nobody's.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm putting some stuff here. Now it says two again.
Yeah,
No, I
that's
think
me
that's
and
the
you.
messages I entered is what it is. I'm gonna send it to a few people.
Yeah, there's a way for you to see like the guys that are subscribed and to send them a specific message as well.
I think they get notices though.
Yeah, but if they're not, you don't get. I don't know. You can stop your notices from going to like, on your phone to appear so that you see them. So you'd have to be on YouTube to see the notices.
And get. Hold on a second, I'll get somebody.
We might need like a subject matter too. Like, hey, there's a
Who's that?
guy named Celso. What's up with
Oh
Vince?
yeah,
Crazy.
Celso's the guy I know. Yeah. What's up with Vince? Miguel can answer that.
Well, he's gone. That's the thing. I was actually, going back a long way. There are a lot of videos out on this stuff too. Everybody knows probably Hannibal is a guy who does a lot of the interviews of pro wrestlers and a lot of the shoot interviews and stuff. And you can look up, I was watching one today about um, the Pat Patterson rumors. And, Pat Patterson was Vince's right hand man for a long time. And there's a guy named Ricky. So you type, I'll talk. Hi Ricky, hi Celso, how you guys doing? Um, and uh, I don't know if you remember Sid Vicious, the pro wrestler, big giant guy, muscular. He was talking about how Pat Patterson kept inviting him to his hotel room at night, to watch lightning from the balcony, which these are grown adult men. It's not, that's not normal. And Sid said Pat grabbed him from around the waist from behind and said, I got the big guy, I got the big guy. And he was nervous, he was uptight. He said he did Sid's not the smartest guy in the world. I think he knows it too. He's a body, he's a big physical guy. And he also wasn't a trained superstar, like amateur wrestler or anything like that. He had kind of a different background. So he said, I don't know much about chain wrestling, but I learned it at that moment. He got his arm in there and got free of Pat Patterson. And he said he went to his room, and then they went on. We're talking about a guy named Jim Powers, who I remember Jim. When they said Jim Powers, I can imagine him in my head. So he had a run where he was a tag team champion with a guy named Paul Roma. Both those guys were young, good looking, physical looking, six pack muscular guys. And they didn't have a long run or a huge career, and they spent a good little bit of time as jobbers, but um, you know, I think it was Marty Jannetty, and Marty Jannetty is yeah, I think he was Shawn Michaels' original tag team partner before Shawn became a singles fight superstar. And Marty Jannetty had a reputation for being a rough dude. He was the kind of guy who would not take shit in the back in the audience, in the locker room, and he was kind of an enforcer guy, and he'll tell it like it is. And he said he was looking for Jim, right around the time they were getting their push, and Jim disappeared. He had actually checked out of a hotel, like they went to bed, you know, uh, he's looking for him the next morning, maybe for breakfast or something like that. And Powers was gone. Not in, did he switch rooms? No, he checked out of the hotel and was gone. And he said this was 1990. And he said, before cell phones and stuff. So he said it was a couple of months before he caught up to Jim Powers. And Jim Powers said, once again, it was Pat Patterson. And Pat Patterson, the instructions were, he said he got a phone call with some type of voice that was altered. They said they told him to go to a certain room on the 11th floor, lie down on the bed, and Pat Patterson would probably come in and give him a blowjob. That's the word that was there, because he was told to lie down on the bed and he would be serviced. Um, so yeah, that's 1990. That's 33 years ago. And Vince was there for those. The first story they told with Sid was they were all at a table with Vince and these guys. Vince got away, and Pat Patterson's position was enough that he could kind of be like, Vince is a dick, and like that in public and get away with it. So, this stuff goes back a lot. Sordid activities in the WWE go back a long, long, long time. Go back to the 70s. They had similar rumors about Tony Garea, who was a New Zealand, an Australian guy. And, he was always, handsome Tony Garea and that sort of thing. And he was a multiple time tag team champion with a bunch of different partners. And he was a good wrestler. He was a good wrestler. He wasn't, like a huge box office attraction, though. But he had a long career, and then he went, and it's interesting to see which of those guys, they all seem to wind up working in the Connecticut offices, where Vince has his main offices and stuff. So how do those guys get picked? What gets picked there? What goes on? So Vince has this reputation of freakish behavior for going on 4 or 5 decades. Now he just got caught. They said he may be being investigated by, the feds and stuff like that. We'll see. For 50 years, they've been closing the wagons, circling the wagons, and not a lot has gotten out, in terms of, actionable or Vince's, always seem to be Teflon and doesn't go down, So we'll see how much he suffers at the end. Like I said, it could at the end turn out to be like a Donald Sterling type of situation where, contrary to what his ego would want, because I think Vince is a Bob Aaron type where he would have been there till he was 85, doing what he does if they had let him, but he's going to be out. So he gets to ride off into the sunset with $1 billion and leave it to his kid. And watching, and I just caught some clips and stuff. I don't watch the WWE show right now at this point in life, but Hunter has been asserting himself and been on TV a lot. Like, so again, that the UFC effect of, move on, don't talk about it, move on. and get more content out there, more, something else, another storyline, another thing for people to get their mind around. And they're tapping history right now. They brought The Rock out. They're talking about the family tree of The Rock, and it looks like Roman Reigns is heading into a feud with Cody Rhodes. You know, you know, WWE fans may remember Dusty as kind of a laughing stock with the polka dots and with the he had like a black girlfriend, black manager, older lady that, they didn't treat Dusty well. And that was because Dusty was a main booker for NWA and stuff like that. And but to me Dusty was my favorite wrestler as a kid. So, when you talk about pedigree, I think Cody's got good pedigree. And Goldust did, as weird as he did a lot of work and put out a lot of memorable moments for them and stuff. So he's got a little bit of family background, and that's kind of the theme of what they're doing now. But no mention of Vince. No, obviously, no mention of any of the stuff like that going on in TV shows. It's more like brainwashing with, hey, here's more content, more content, more content, more content, so that people just forget. And Vince will be forgotten. He's already sort of forgotten. You know, I don't think, even if he goes to jail, which I strongly doubt he will, but even if he goes to jail, I don't think it'll affect the WWE's bottom line. It's not like anybody, they've put out so much content and moved on so quickly that nobody's going to say, well, I'm not watching that show anymore because of this. So they've already succeeded as a corporation, and Vince has already succeeded in handing off the baton. So that's sort of my opinion on Vince. Michael, tell me about that video. I didn't see that video. Go ahead and type out there what you have. We can look it up here. I find that interesting. Yeah, Vince is a guy that, at the end of the day, we all saw him on TV, roided to the gills many times, including, roided in his 70s and stuff like that. So he was, and taking bumps, and um a lot of the pro wrestlers will tell you that, hey, Vince works real stiff, So when Vince hit you in the ring, they felt it. It's not like he knew the soft touches of pro wrestling or how to care for the opponent and stuff like that. He was more brutish, and that's part of the ego. That's part of the ego that he likes to, consider himself one of the guys like that. And then, in the back room, I think the ego, lets him dominate, and who knows, bisexual behavior or whatever like that. That he might be responsible for. There were also, we mentioned it in one of the podcasts. You got to remember, he did, I think, the XFL, and there weren't that many rumors around the XFL that I can remember, but he also did bodybuilding league, especially around the time that they merged with the WCW, and Lex Luger came to the WWE for the first time, because Lex Luger was a bodybuilder looking fighter. Like, his muscles were, beyond the athletic muscle of, say, The Rock or anything like that. Lex Luger was a guy who could flex down, pose down, and look like a bodybuilder. And around that time with the bodybuilding league, Vince sunk a lot of money into it. And those sordid rumors crept up where, some of the guys in the bodybuilding league had been approached and talked to, and, even solicited and stuff like that. So, yeah, I wonder if we can take any UFC questions or fight questions or anything like that. Yeah, Todd, thanks for that idea. Yeah, Mike, Mike, I think Vince is going to ride up in the sunset thinking he was wronged. I don't think I think you're right. I think he should have some type of introspection where he realizes, wow, but I think that's not what happens with those guys. I think he's going to be out there thinking he was wrong the whole time. And at Thanksgiving, when Stephanie and Hunter come over, or he goes there, or whatever happens, they're going to still have to bow down to his ego behind, at that level and stuff like that, because I don't think Vince is ever going to, ask for forgiveness or anything like that. We'll see. Maybe if he goes to court, and the courts, find something and, find him culpable. Maybe he has to give up some money, maybe, some type of repercussions, maybe a permanent ban so he never comes back, because that's the thing. How many times has he gone away and come back? So it's like at this point, it looks like he's probably not going to be back. And with TKO, there's other management there that, if you're the TKO management, you wouldn't want him back. Not with these types of rumors and stuff like that, not with shareholders and things. So very interesting stuff. But yeah, I don't think you ever get an act of contrition from Vince. If the court forces it, you'll get like I'm sorry in court and stuff like that. But will it be sincere from the heart? I'd bet against that. Yeah.
He said the
Yeah.
UFC 300 poster leaked and it had Duplessis on it. Let me see if I can find the news on this.
Oh, that now, Celso, that's interesting news. When we did the last podcast, Duplessis, I think, is a guy that has potential. He's well spoken. He's good looking. He's done a mountain of work beating Strickland the way he did. But that fight, when was that fight? Let me look this up here for you. But if I'm, and again, if they offer him a boatload of money, and these guys, they need the money, right? So it's like if they
Where's the
offer him a
poster?
boatload of money, of course he's going to come and fight, just like Mister Aljamain Sterling came back and took on O'Malley kind of faster than he wanted to. He said he wanted to go on vacation, but they threw some money at him, so why not do it? But talking about he fought Strickland January 20th. That's about 3 weeks ago. Getting to be about a month, but still, his face was bruised up, puffed up, cut up enough that I would want more than just a couple of months to heal that up. He's a champion now. Take your 6 months or 5 months before your next fight so that you don't come back with paper thin skin. You know, just my opinion. Maybe there's enough time between now and 300 for him to heal, and they might do the fight. Um, but yeah, yeah, Adesanya, they loved him. Adesanya's let people down. I think. I think that he's shown his top end. Against Anderson, against Strickland, you can get into his head. They're not guy. He's not a guy who's ironclad anyway. Um, so is that the blockbuster pay-per-view fight that gets him to 1.5 million views or something like that? I don't know. I don't know if it is. It's a great fight that I'd like to see it. And then where's Adesanya at this point? Is he a guy that because he had said he was going to take a few years off. He's got money. Hey, go, do your few years off. That's cool. I'm not knocking you for that. But, all of a sudden he's going to come back. What shape is he going to be in? I'd like to see. I'm a big believer in having the guys both mentally and physically prepared. And this is a situation where Adesanya maybe not either of those. Yeah, but yeah, it's a compelling fight. I'd almost think Pereira Jiri and that are on the same level. You know, at the end of the day, you've got a New Zealand / African against a South African, and then you've got a European against the Brazilian. You know, on in the American market. Now they're great fighters, all four of them, but you know, Strickland would actually move the needle much more than any of those. Strickland against Adesanya rematch or Strickland against Duplessis again might be a bigger box office fight than Adesanya at this point. So, take it for what it's worth. What do you want from 300? They want to make money. They don't care really about that blockbuster fight. They don't really have one that stands out among a pack of things. Like I said, Pereira and Jiri, might be gelling and like I said, I know that obviously they didn't fight 3 weeks ago like Strickland and Duplessis did. So you're in a situation there where That fight, they should add both of them. If they want to give people a real blockbuster card, they should have both those fights. Have the Chinese girls for the Chinese market, and you could look up the podcast that we just did recently with Todd here, where we went into in depth on how I think they should be looking at that fight in terms of monetization. They're going to make a lot of money off that fight in China if they play it the right way. They're going to get a lot of eyes in China if they play it the right way. Having a couple other good title fights on there might help them retain some of the audience that's going to see that stuff for the first time in China. And you're talking about maybe a couple 100 million people that could watch that fight potentially. In the U.S., the women don't move the needle that way. Ronda didn't get half the country watching it or a quarter of the country. She was a blockbuster for us, but the Chinese follow their athletes a little bit different. And if they play their cards the right way, that's still going to be the bigger fight, even if any of these that we're talking about here get added. I got to be honest with you. I'm going to watch this Saturday UFC that's coming up here with a very interested eye because um, just I don't know enough. I haven't seen enough of his opponent to be 100% sure. Volkanovski um, has been on a
Tapore's
great
good,
run.
man.
Yeah, and that's the
Yeah, he's
problem
good.
with these Dagestanis, these Russians, these Chechens,
Tapore's from
these.
Spain.
But that name is in Spanish, is it?
I don't know,
He's,
but he's from Spain.
yeah, let me look this up. Because hold on a minute here. Because I'm Spanish. I'm from Spain. My last name is pure Spain. You know what I mean? That's if anybody wants to look it up. It's a Basque last name. And this guy's name looked to me like an Eastern European name. And there are a lot of Eastern Europeans that have migrated over there. So Tapuria, Ilya Tapuria. Maybe I am wrong. Maybe I thought he was Romanian or something like that. Let's see what his background is. Let's see if we can find something on this guy.
I'm going to bring up this poster that was supposedly leaked, shared on the
Georgian.
screen.
He's living. He may be living in. It's actually he's living in Germany right now. Oh, he was born in Germany. He's of Georgian descent. So,
Oh, okay.
so
Close
yeah,
enough.
yeah. No, I could. I'm pretty good with looking at a name and catching the ethnicity of it. And yes, I said he was Russian or Chechen or something like that. He turns out to be Georgian. But if you look at the history of Russians and Russian wrestling, the Georgians carried a huge weight of the great wrestlers from the past. Were from that section of the country. Now Georgia is a separate country now, but it was part of the Soviet Union at the time. So for the record, Stalin was Georgian. So they actually the one of the most feared dictators in history on the Russian scene was actually from that area of the country. So yeah, tough people, tough guy, and yeah, he brings a lot of heat. Those guys come with a lot of work ethic, a lot of having, even if it was born in Germany, his parents maybe immigrated, which means they brought him up having had a hard life at some point and things like that. And these guys have a different value of what they're blessed to be just able. All they have to do is train. They don't have to do anything else. And if when they get to that case, they're in the happiest mode of their life. And again, in some of those war torn areas where you've seen real war and your family has suffered real life situations. What goes on in the octagon is really a game. It's not anything for him. You get that feeling from Chimaev, where Chimaev simply doesn't have that fear of anybody in the ring because there's nothing they can do to him that he hasn't seen something much worse. So, or heard stories of much worse within the family and stuff. So I respect those Eastern European guys for their mental toughness as well. And so yeah, I think Volkanovski he brings that too. But Volkanovski came out, with the story that he'd been having alcohol problems. They've been overdoing it on the drinking end and things like that. And, um, when you stop drinking, stopping drinking is a great accomplishment, especially if you've, gotten into the area of that it had become a problem, you know. But at the end of the day, just stopping drinking is not enough. Now you got to really start your life and build your life up again and going in the direction you want and build new habits without that habit there. So, is he satisfied with, all right, I stopped drinking and stuff, but then, is he going to be at the top of his game? Is he going to be in the fighter's mindset where it's like, this guy can't beat me? You have to have that mindset. And if Volkanovski's just like, all right, this is my first fight without drinking. I've made it, how bad was his drinking problem? I don't know, but you know, it's a weird writing on the wall. Plus, he's also been on a spectacular run. The losses to Makachev aside, Makachev is starting to look like a Khabib type of special athlete. They were right when Khabib told us, "Wait till you see Makachev." It's very possible they were right. Again, he's a guy who brings the total package and stuff. So there's no disrespect in losing to that guy. But one of the things we mentioned here that's notable about Volkanovski, when he fought Makhachev the first time, it was nip and tuck. And when he got the rematch, a lot of people were like, Volkanovski can get him this time. And no, that didn't happen. Makhachev extended the lead he had on him, put him out and finished him. No one's talking about them fighting again anymore because Makhachev didn't leave any question. Head kick knockout from a wrestler. Who got better? It was Makhachev. Volkanovski kind of went in, maybe with a little drinking, maybe with a little drinker's confidence, went in, didn't evolve to the next level that he would have needed to make that fight happen. So now without drinking, is that evolution that was stalled still stalled? Hasn't picked that up yet, or was he able to go ahead and say, okay, I've got to change the old Kobe Bryant line of Kobe supposedly said to himself every day, did I get better today? Did I get better today? Did I get better today? And you do that for a few years or a few months in a row, and you start to see the differences. And if Volkanovski's change was like, all right, I got another day without drinking, and that other evolution isn't going on, then yeah, he may very well be good to go against the guy who's very, complete. So
What do
we'll
you think
see.
about this poster leak here that I shared?
Yes, I can't speak it either. I went to Spain, and my last name is clearly Basque, but my father spoke Basque. I don't.
Miguel, are you
And
looking at the share on the screen that I did?
yeah, two
It's
months to
not going to
go.
show up on you see that poster leak that I showed there?
Yeah, two
What do
months
you
to
think
go.
about that?
Is that Duplessis? Is that the back of his head?
Or
That could be
McGregor?
Rafael or Rafael dos Anjos.
Looks like Duplessis, doesn't it?
Those kind of square heads from the back. You could almost be, and Rafael. No, I'm kidding. Obviously, he's not in the main event scene anymore. Obviously, but you know that could be just about anybody.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
It could actually also be a model, where it's not meant to be anybody. It's meant to be just something that's an advertisement for the
Right.
show. So I don't know that promises us much.
Right.
Um,
I took
and
it down.
April 13th, and it also doesn't say anything about Saturday being if I think it said look for an announcement Saturday, it would be a lot more interesting. That could be just an advertising poster. Um, so we'll see what goes on there. Yeah, when I was to finish the story really fast, when I was in Spain, they would look at my last name and look at me and realize I'm kind of an American. I speak Spanish well, but not Basque. And they were like, "You're not Basque. You have a Basque last name, but you're not Basque." They're very circle the wagons kind of people. I do like them and respect being from that culture. I love it, but um, Michael Green commented the Basque is the only language the devil can't speak, and neither can this devil here. Yeah, Ilya was born in Germany, but like I said, his Wikipedia page has the Georgian flag as well, and states he's from Georgia originally, or his parents were from Georgia. So there's a lot of Georgians that emigrated to Germany. Um, so it's not unusual, but yeah, he's Eastern European as I originally said. Well, Celso, are we guaranteed to see Jones and Stipe? Because I'll tell you, they've insulted, disrespected, and treated Stipe so poorly that Stipe's got a and Stipe's not a lifestyle guy. Stipe would go home and go be a fireman. You know what I mean? It's not like you heard Stipe got arrested in his Bentley or bought a Ferrari or was painting his toenails and doing TikTok videos. He's not any of those things. He's a guy who would go do his 48-hour shifts at the firehouse, come home and be with family. So I trust that he's banked some of his UFC money away. And on top of that, he's got his fireman's salary coming in. So he has no reason to have ever spent any of that money. He's okay. So, and at this point, if I were Stipe, nothing short of like 30 million bucks would get me back into the ring. He has no reason to come back, especially after what he's done the UFC favors by sitting out, by waiting, by letting guys skip him over at times. And it's gotten him nowhere. Hey, Stipe, we need you for UFC 300. Why the fuck would he react to that? He shouldn't. He shouldn't. So I think Stipe Jones is a dream now. We were close to having it happen. It didn't happen. And Stipe, it's just another one of those like, oh man, again. So why, unless it's something crossover, which I don't think this company wants to do. I don't think this company wants to overpay to get a guy. And I think that that's what I would force them to do if I was Stipe. So I don't think we get Stipe Jones. That Aspinall hasn't moved the needle yet. For Jones, is again part of Jones's, to me, every match you've got to create, the atmosphere where people want to do it. So if with Aspinall, he's British, right? I'm not wrong, right? Todd, he's British, right? Todd, you with me? I'm going to look it up just because I
Yes,
don't
he
want.
is. Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, I thought so. And that's why he kind of outboxed Stepanovic or Pavlovich because Pavlovich was a guy who with sledgehammers, but man, was he a sloppy boxer. And I Curtis Blades should have been able to do that, but I kind of thought that he would get by Blades because Blades has already shown his top end, I thought. But Aspinall did the job and did the job very well. He's got hands better than Pavlovich did. He's earned where he is. Now that Jones says he's not, on his level or doesn't move the needle and stuff, create something. Let's do the fight, 20,000 seats. This is a good return. Put him at the top of the card against Jones and put Leon Edwards on the card in London. And all of a sudden you've got some hype and some attention. And let Jones be the underdog, not the underdog, but going into the Lions' Den. Because if there's one thing that I think is an X factor there, that I would like to see Jones show me the mental toughness. We could do this in Vegas, and then Jones is Mayweather, whereas Mayweather would drag his opponents to Vegas, where there's so many stories about when Mayweather's fights were there, everybody in Vegas makes money. Even the people who clean the hotel rooms can say, "Oh man, the last time he was in town, I got great tips for cleaning the rooms." And Jones may start to have that hometown effect in Vegas. Make him go to London, where the British fans are a different breed, man. They're a different breed, You start to get, wild men and people that come to the hotel, partying up and just being like, "Yeah, he's gonna kill you," just that type of thing, atmosphere, pressure on Jones. I'd like to see how he handles that. He should be paid accordingly. He should be paid what he wants to be paid, or a lot of money because of his pedigree and his champion, and because you want him there and kind of focus for the fight. But why make it into a situation where Aspinall's already going to be the underdog? Why make it into a situation where all the cards are stacked against Aspinall? Why don't we give Aspinall some advantages and do that fight in London? So that means it wouldn't be on top of 300. But I think that fight should be made. I think Aspinall is a guy that, he after beating Pavlovich was the guy who some people thought was going to get to that level. And by taking him out, Aspinall is clearly I would take Aspinall over Cyril. Cyril at this point is a non-factor in the weight class, really. Aspinall's the guy. And if Jones goes away, Aspinall would establish himself, maybe need to go on a 3 fight winning streak to really get over with the public and stuff. Yeah. But you think Aspinall wouldn't take the Jones fight? Of course he would. And the fact that Jones won't take it is Jones being a little bit of a prima donna. So I don't like it. And I do think that they should be prepared to do that fight and make that fight happen without having Jones Stipe first. Because I think Stipe is out of the picture at this point. Like I said, if I were Stipe, I would tell him to go scratch. Good questions, guys. Yeah, Aspinall versus Cyril. Yeah, you know what happens there? I think Aspinall continues to his upward trajectory, and Cyril continues moving backwards. I don't think Cyril's got the heart or the fire. Ngannou had that calm, cool, and collected nature, but when it's on, he's a killer. And Cyril, I think, is hit and miss. And if you start to negate some of his physicality and stuff, I think he starts to shut down. I don't think he's a mentally strong fighter. So I think Aspinall is the guy. Cyril, you can put him in with Gane. Maybe they should do that on UFC 300 to try to lure Jones. But after what Jones did to Gane, Aspinall would have to do better against Gane to impress Jones, or what would impress Jones? Like I said, Jones, Aspinall should be in London. You give Aspinall a few, a few. He's going to be the underdog, but it's not going to be the 4-figure underdog that he might be in Vegas because it's in his hometown. And give him that advantage. The type of appreciation he should give would be to come in as prepared as he ever has, ready more than he ever has. And Jones would have to have a little bit of thinking going on in the back of his head over, okay, I'm going to London. This is a little different. This is not the same thing. I have to take it seriously on a different level. I think you force him to do something that's out of their wheelhouse. This going to Vegas, like I say, the Mayweather effect is the Mayweather effect. Look how many of Mayweather's fight were in Vegas, where he actually lives. So yeah, Gane has his place. He's a guy who looks good and stuff like that. But yeah, I think he'd be a doorman for Aspinall. Aspinall, he could use the win. He could use the padding on his record. A win over Cyril Gane would still mean something in terms of his resume. But I think he's ready now. I think he deserves the Jones fight now because they can't get Stipe and the other things they've talked about. I think I'm letting Jones sit because he wants to, because he feels like his ego, this, that, the other stuff. This is nonsense.
I think it's good that they've taken some time with Gon though, because Aspinall's good on the ground. I don't, you don't want to rush Gon back.
No,
Yeah.
like I said, I don't think Gon's in the title picture. Even
Yeah.
if he beat Aspinall somehow, that would just screw things up.
I think they're comfortable with that. They want him to be ready when he comes back. They don't want him to get exposed again on the ground, because you can only lose so many fights that way. If he came back and he lost real quickly again.
Celso's making us do some work here. Who are the PFL champions? Who are the Bellator champions? So what are the immediate, if they did a champion versus champion, Bellator versus PFL stuff, what is it that we're actually looking at in the ring?
You're going to make Miguel look up PFL stuff. You better give him a super chat.
No, I'm going to make you look them up. Well, you tell me who the champions are and I'll talk about the fights.
Oh, okay. One moment.
Because, yeah, I'm sorry to do that to you, Top, but it'll be very helpful because, the PFL needs to do something, and I think that I've talked about this at length in many podcasts. The first step is now with the full roster with a few hundred fighters on there. The first step would be somehow, some way, announce a calendar where there are now weekly fights, not
One
for
second.
3 months and then they take time off, not for 4 months and then they take time off. Weekly fights are now the norm. Start to do that, and now that's the first step towards closing the gap in some way, shape, or form. So doing a title versus title show could be a flag here, but then if they go ahead and take a month off after that, that's the season closing show. Like they did with the tournaments and the crown of champions and stuff in the past. That's a season closing show, and then they go ahead and take a few months off. It's a non-starter. It doesn't matter.
Okay, so they
So
list them by the year. So the
okay,
2023, the most recent ones,
yeah,
they had a Magomed Karimov, who I've seen fight before. He fought Ray Cooper several times, I think two or three
okay.
times. He beat him once. I think the other time he got beat by him, but he won the welterweight tournament. He's good. He's like 34-5, so he's pretty
So at
pretty good.
welterweight, he would get Lima.
And then you got Oliver uh Aubin Mercier. See, he's fighting the UFC, I
Okay, yeah,
believe.
yeah.
And then you got
He's at 155, right?
uh then you had Renan Ferreira, who was at heavyweight. You
Okay.
got Larissa Pacheco, who's the featherweight
So
champion.
let's start with Renan Ferreira against Ryan Bader, right? Because Bader's the heavyweight champion at Bellator still, right?
Yeah,
Okay, so I'm gonna look up Renan Ferreira's record, and I gotta be honest, I haven't seen much of him. I may have
12
seen
and
some
3.
clip.
He's 12 and 3.
Okay, it's a good record. It's a record that might get him to a mid card fight in the UFC. It's not something that is, it's not 15-0 or 16-0. I'll tell you, the the one guys at heavyweight, they had an African fighter there, and um he fought his heart out. I saw a fight recently where he fought Buchetta, the jiu-jitsu guy who was an ADCC champion.
Mm-hmm.
And if you haven't seen this fight, it's a heavyweight. You can look it up. One Buchetta versus the African fighter in one. It's a heavyweight fight, and that was a fight at a different level of excitement than we normally see in a heavyweight fight. So that was really good. Now, Ferreira is called a problem. 1, 2, 3. So he won the tournament in 2022. He lost in the tournament. It looks like in the playoffs. He's won. He lost to Brett Martin in the what's the LFA? What was the LFA show? Is that Legends, or my internet's a little slow right now? I'm clicking and it's not moving. So okay, Legacy, the Legacy Fighting Champion Alliance in Wisconsin. So he's done a few fights now. Brett Martin 10-1. At the time, let's see what he's is now. They call him the big dog, and he's still 10-1 with one no contest. Looks a little got a little bit of that Roy Nelson appeal, where he doesn't look like a huge physical specimen, but that's who one of his losses is to. So we'll see. Bader might be undersized in that fight. You know what I mean? I like Bader, but again, Bader is not served well by the scheduling here because he hasn't fought now in a while. We haven't heard that name in a long time, and that's the problem with the like I said, the first step for these companies is this merged company, rather this new PFL version with Bellator roster, is to start doing fights every week. We haven't seen Bader's not fought in a year. In a year, he had fought he fought Fedor in Fedor's retirement fight, I think. And Fedor you know, was is a guy that, first of all, he had beaten him already. He had dropped him and knocked him out very quickly, and he did it again. So he fought 2 minutes and 30 seconds against Fedor a year ago in February of 2023. Before that, he fought Cheat Congo, another known quantity, May of 2022, and then he did fight in January 2022. That's what should happen. January, May, he should have fought in November or October, then fought in February against Fedor, then proceeded to fight again in July and in November. That's a rotation. That's what the UFC gets with guys that they're bringing along and putting it out. Maybe because he's champion, maybe you fight him twice a year. But for him to not have fought in Bellator all of 2023 after the Fedor fight, they didn't do him any services. So it'll be an interesting fight. But again, neither of these guys moves the needle that much. So if they come out and have a boring fight, then this becomes completely forgotten. I hate to always go back to the same thing with the PFL, but they need consistency. And like I said, the number one step, if you look at what I was doing with Bodog, is I was adding to my roster and I was trying to get in as many fights as possible for people. I gave guys 4-fight contracts, the top guys that we had. I gave them 4-fight contracts that would be done in 18 months. And I managed to get those fights done for most of the guys that got the better contracts. Eddie Alvarez, George Masvidal, Chael Sonnen. You can look how many times they fought for Bodog. That was on one contract, and it was over a short period of time that they got 4 fights in. These guys need to fight consistently. At any point, and this is what the criticism of the John Jones thing is. With Jones, he could be, sitting at home with his money and his Bentley and, hitting his wife and living his life, doing whatever he wants to do. But at the end of the day, at some point when he's 55, he may look back and go, shit, I should have probably been fighting all those years where I was physically capable of it and sitting out due to ego. That's the same thing with Michael Chandler, the same thing with Conor, the same thing with these guys. These guys have 15 to 20-year careers tops. So anytime you sit out a few years that are not big, like Dominic Cruz sat out a bunch of years, but it was because of multiple knee injuries and knee surgeries. I think Dominic would have been fighting. He wouldn't have been sitting out. And he came back and he fought consistently for a while, fought at a high level for a while, got himself back up there, then got passed by a few guys as, you start to come down. But he's a good example of a guy who lost a few years of his career due to injury, and that's unavoidable for him. But I bet you he wishes he hadn't been injured. He wishes he'd been fighting. Now you got these other clowns that are not fighting and not wishing that they were fighting, and they will, I believe, eventually, if they come to their senses, regret that in their old age. They're going to be like, even if they have money, Conor hopefully will, I'm not a great big Conor fan, but hopefully we're not in a situation where Conor's broke, when he's 60. So he'll have his money, right? But even then, his legacy, what would it have been if he had fought 3 more times? His losses he should have been covering them with wins, getting fights in there and winning. Same thing with Chandler. He's, a guy who came over to the UFC, has competed against the top UFC guys and given us great fights, but hasn't had the great results. He should be looking for those results, not sitting out waiting for a payday. He should be looking, like I said, if he had gone 2-0 last year, then a lot would be forgotten about the losses to Poirier and Gaethje and the plethora of guys that I think he's 1-3 since coming to the UFC. He'd be in the title picture with a 2-fight winning streak because he would be an interesting fight for Makhachev. But instead, he appeared on a TV show, which should make him more recognizable and make his next fight against whoever he was. If Chandler's next fight is not against Conor, Chandler should be the A side of that fight. He's been on a TV show. He's a former Bellator champion. He's an exciting fighter. He's not thinking of any of those things. And that's the problem with this Bader Ferreira fight. Renan, In the United States, he's fought, on B class shows, and that includes the PFL. So now, if they don't improve their distribution, then it's going to still be a B class show. But nobody knows Renan Ferreira. Renan Ferreira could walk into any restaurant in the United States and not be recognized. And Ryan Bader, like I said, now how old is Bader? Bader, like I said, nobody gets served by these years off. Take a year off because the company doesn't know what the hell they're doing. So yeah, it's a moderately injured. Bader's 40 at this point. That says it all. At 39, still coming off big wins, still the champion. Takes a year off. That's not Bader's doing. That's Scott Coker's complete incompetence. And that's what we're facing with that company, since he was aboard. Nobody recognizes that. But the fact is when they were with Viacom, they're married to a TV schedule there. And therefore, they would do, 3 fights in 3 weeks and then take 2 months. And nobody, and the roster would sit there and be like, when's my next fight? I don't even know when I'm fighting, this, that, the other stuff. That's the number one obstacle that they need to overcome. A champion versus champion show isn't going to be glossy enough. Here you're talking about heavyweights. These guys don't move the needle anymore. Brian Bader anymore, and Ferreira never has. So unless they do a drop dead fight like the one I mentioned in one that I recommend people go out and look at, unless they have a knockdown, drag out fight like that they can put on social media and get people to know about it, then, again, it'll just be a good, decent show for the fans that are there, but they're not going to get new fans. They're not going to be in a situation where it's going to change the landscape of the game. So,
Right.
yeah, those are my thoughts. They need to clean up their act and have fights consistently. That's the number one act that they need to get to. No matter what, do shows. Like I said, I would go so far as to do shows the old Bulldog way, where it's like just, do a weekend with a lot of fights, and then the next weekend do a lot of fights. Even if you're not airing them, get them aired later. Even let the results go out and stuff like that. But they don't seem to have a grasp on that. The PFL was off all of December, all of January, most of February before picking up their schedule again. So
Well, you said they might be waiting out to see what happens with this lawsuit.
Again, that's a mistake because
Oh, someone gave us a super chat. Celso, $20. Thanks for that. Will MVP cut it in the UFC? And if Colby loses again, forget about being a champ. Well, yeah, of course. If he could lose again, he's done. I think he's done already. But yeah, I appreciate the $20. Thanks for that.
Yeah, no, that's a surprise. Very grateful because it means something that we're actually talking something that's valuable. That's all. It shows a lot, and we do appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and put in the link in the chat here a link to the YouTube fight of one I was talking about, and it's called Rug is the guy, and he comes from that Nigerian wrestling that they do like in dirt, where with like one hand tied up, in rope.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Like really rugged stuff. And Buchecha is, like I said, an ADCC world champion, and that's a slugfest. And even if Ferreira and Bader fought a fight like that, it'll have limited effect because, like we said, we've gone over it a bunch of times. If that's the fight, and then you don't see the PFL or the brand or the show or something new from them the next week, and they wait, 6 weeks before airing another show, then they've lost all the heat and the hype that they have there. Yeah, take that fight and mention it every single show. Have people go out and look. At this point, they should be looking at. If you could get 10 million views on that on YouTube, the YouTube will cut them a nice check. They should be looking for that as an income stream because, I don't think Bud Light's knocking on their door.
Right.
So yeah, everybody who's out there still go ahead and take a peek at that one fight, because I was actually pleasantly surprised. I had hope at one point. I didn't. When one came out, I was like, all right, let's see if these guys pull off 20 shows. Let's see that. Well, they've done that, and they've reached a certain level where you could almost hang hope on them. I think they've dropped the ball in the United States, and I think we've mentioned the reason for that. I think the reason for that is that, to be honest with you, in Singapore and the countries that they operate in, they're actually legally able to have much more restrictive contracts in the UFC, and that their contracts are actually worse than the UFC's contracts. And over there, there's not going to be a situation where somebody sues them or tries to change the landscape. Getting back to Todd's point, where the PFL might be playing the waiting game and see what the UFC is. The UFC waiting around?
No, I mean they're
They,
going to
they,
keep
they're
going with their shows. They can't.
no, no,
They're
no.
not going to give the
No, but
lawsuit any legs. They're going to just keep doing what they're doing and
no,
hope it doesn't
I
blow up
understand
in
that.
their face.
I'm not saying waiting around like, okay, we're not going to do weekly shows anymore.
Right,
I'm
right, right.
saying, are they waiting around? Hey, technically, the lawsuit should be something that holds up, and maybe it has, but technically, the lawsuit is something that should have held up. Why would you merge? Why would the WWE merge with a company be under lawsuit?
Yeah.
I think they're confident, and I think they know that they can string it out for years. So until if they string it out for years, this is going to go down in April 7th or 8th, something like that was the date that we were given. That from there, the trial's expected to last, 6 weeks, 5 weeks, 7 weeks, something around that nature, 2 months, say. So by the summer, the UFC could be convicted, and then what'll happen is they'll appeal. And one of the things that I was worrying about when I was considering this, sitting around at home alone, is all the emails, all that stuff. If they were really careful in some of the ways they communicated things, one of the things that's going to come out here, and Teflon Dana isn't going to care, but Dana's going to look bad. Because Dana's going to be his usual, much worse than his usual self in those emails. That's where you're going to get the real Dana, where he's telling people, F you and screw this guy. I want out of the league, that sort of thing. But true illegal acts like, hey, go and hire the pay-per-view, will that be revealed? Go and hire the pay-per-view agent who handles Bodog's pay-per-views and get them out of there so that we screw up pay-per-view. Go and do a show in the same city as one on the same day as them, which they haven't done, but things like that. Unless that's proven, then they may not get too much activity against them, by the courts.
Yeah,
But
but
let's
back
say,
then there was no social media. They were communicating by email for sure,
yeah, no, and the emails are going to be,
primarily.
and here's the thing is, and phone.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you a story. I worked at a sports book down here, and the boss of the sports books, it's one of those guys that, in the United States, they didn't like him having a sports book in Costa Rica. And, the FBI probably wanted to talk to him a little bit. And there was a time where me and his cousin were going to go to his house in Vegas, and we were going to pick up $30,000 in cash that was hidden in the house somewhere. I know nothing about how that money was made, probably on gambling and stuff. And that was probably just, a nest egg, a stash that he had there. And he was having to pull it out. And me and his cousin and another guy were going to divide it 10,000 each so we could fly back to Costa Rica and not, have to declare it. Because if one guy carried the 30, you'd have to declare it. So that's the whole story there. But when he told us about it, he didn't tell us about it in the office. We took a car, we went to the airport and stood in a field outside the airport where the planes are flying over and making noise and stuff. And everybody left their cell phones and all electronic devices in the office. Nothing that could be traced for that conversation. So how was Dana able to pull Joe Silva and people like that into that sort of game? I know it sounds ridiculous. And maybe it is. Maybe these guys get to a level of paranoia that's beyond. But if Dana, in early 2000s, were they actually recording every phone call like they supposedly are now? You know, After 2001 is when the Patriot Act came, and I think they legally were able to. So that means that by 2002, we should have Dana's phone calls actually recorded. Are they able to access that? Are they able to bring that in? How were those messages sent? Because unless uh, that Dana was an asshole of a new level, I think will be easily proven. But is that actionable to the point where they can say, you got to break up the company, change the contracts, do business in a whole different way? I don't know. That'll be up in the air. So the idea is that the PFL is waiting for that to happen. So let's say that does happen, that they prove that the UFC colluded against other companies and are now a monopoly that needs to be broken up and changed. They're going to appeal. They're going to appeal. And I think with the WWE, if they buy BKFC, like, or at least they're corroborating with BKFC, and they buy Top Rank, they're going to be able to make a defense of being something completely different than the PFL or just these other MMA companies. They're not just an MMA company. They've moved beyond that. And that's going to make them very powerful. I point to the example in history when Citibank and Travelers Group merged. They had to actually lobby in Washington to change the laws because the banks were not able to operate as insurance companies. So they changed the laws, merged, and then argued that Citigroup, and they kept the Citigroup logo looking like the Citibank logo, and then put a little red umbrella to remind you of the Travelers over it in their logo in their in the early days. I don't know what it looks like nowadays, obviously. But in the early days, they argued that they are now a complete and total financial. You can go to them for all your financial needs, including insurances, including things like that. That Citigroup was a one-stop shop where you can do everything. And the UFC, the WWE, BKFC, possibly Top Rank, possibly now becomes a one-stop shop for all your combat sports needs.
Do you
So
think Venom
they could,
Page beats Kevin Holland?
yeah, I think so. But it depends what Kevin shows up. I think Kevin's gotten himself into a rut. I think Kevin's got to work on his mind a little bit and be concentrating on a win, and then he's capable of winning. But I think Kevin's a guy that's taken enough losses at this point that um you know that I question his mind and from fight to fight.
I think Venom's a little more, even though his style's different, I think he's a little more polished in his approach.
Yeah, I think he's got more to lose too, and
Right.
and especially his UFC debut and stuff like that. I think he's going to care more. Now, keep in mind, Kevin Holland is trained originally by a guy that I found, a guy named Travis Luter,
Hmm.
who actually had friggin' Anderson Silva mounted in the title fight at one point and lost it. So my hats off to Travis. He made it to the top, and fell just a little bit short. But I respect the hell out of Travis because one of the things about Travis's mind was even more formidable than what he brought in terms of technique. And he was trained by Carlos Machado in jiu-jitsu and trained at the original Lions Den. Not the problematic California Lions Den with Ken and, the drug kind of underbelly that they had, but the more serious Lions Den with Mesger, Trey Telligman, Alex Andrade, and the Texas Lions Den, they didn't have those. They were much that underbelly of partying and stuff. In fact, I think that was part of the frictions between the two Lions Dens. Everybody had to respect Ken because Ken was Ken, but I don't think those guys liked the atmosphere that was around there. I think that the Texas Lions Den was much more serious, and Luter was one of those guys that was there from the very, very beginning. A guy from South Dakota who drove and down there and stayed. And that tells you a lot about mindset. And I think that Kevin Holland would do a lot for himself if he could copy Travis's mindset again, or at least try to mimic it in terms of focus and in terms of seriousness. Because I don't think he's serious anymore. I think like he's become like I used to talk during fights now. or he spent a lot of that time where it's like he's talking to the fans, he's talking to the ref, he's talking to his opponent, he's talking to Dana, all during the fight. Even Dana criticized it, but that's his
May
shtick.
just
He's
be
got a
nervous
shtick.
habits. It might be just the nerves.
Yeah, then
Could
you
be.
got to overcome that. You can't
Yeah.
you can't let it. If you did it once in a fight, got criticized, then you don't do it again. But he did it again. It's gotten to the point where it becomes a shtick.
Right.
Now his shtick is what people remember, not his series, and obviously not wins because he's taken a few losses, including against Chimaev. Against Chimaev, he tried to bring a little bit of the heat. Wrong approach against Chimaev. Try to bully Chimaev, I think it is a moronic move. So at every step with Holland, I think he's not in the game 100% with his mind right now. He's talented enough to beat Venom, especially if he gets his jiu-jitsu off. But yeah, I think Venom's got a lot more to lose.
Yeah, and he's tough to face the first time. I know they're talking about Wonder Boy here, but Venom is longer. He's really quick. Um, I think he's a hard guy to face the first time because of that. Wonder Boy, even though he has a similar style, he's not quite as quick as Venom. He's not as long. Venom's tall, long guy. It's a difficult guy to fight for most people the first time they face him. Even Douglas Lima, who I think the world of as a striker. He did beat, Venom eventually, but I think, it wasn't, he didn't have his way with him to start the fight. He had
Yeah,
he had to work
I
on it.
think I think Venom is a guy that you can compare to Conor McGregor. I think that he got himself um further advanced in his career than he needed to be or should have been because of his personality and because of his flashiness. But eventually, the technique has come along, and he's gotten to be
Hmm.
a fighter that backs it up. And that's what he has to lose now. Again, and don't misunderestimate the UFC. If you look at Bellator guys, the UFC's kind of taking a different approach here. Who was Eddie Alvarez's first Bellator fight in the UFC? It was a brutal
In the
fight.
UFC.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, it may have
That's
been
a
Cerrone or someone like that. It wasn't an easy fight. Same thing with Chandler. Chandler came in right again at the top level.
Eddie
Now,
doesn't know how to be in the UFC's fight. All his fights are wars. It's kind of how that's kind
yeah,
of his
and you can
trademark,
say the same thing for Chandler,
Chandler too.
but they
Yeah.
didn't. But Holland isn't a top five middleweight.
I'm looking up Eddie's
You
UFC
know
debut.
the other guys they brought in from Bellator have gotten top five guys, and Holland's not. So I think that the UFC is sending subtle messages here. They have Venom Page. They took him away from the PFL, whereas the PFL had just invited him to their shows and stuff, and they just took him. They put him in the middle of the card against one of their workhorses, but not against a top shelf guy.
It was
In
Cerrone.
other
You're right.
words, in other words, I
Decision.
don't think I'm not saying that Venom's getting an easy fight, but he's getting an easier fight than other Bellator carryovers have.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And that says something. Venom should realize that too and say, I'm being given a chance here to perform, not to go through the meat grinder.
Well, I mean, they did put him in with a guy who's similar in build. Holland's he's a good puncher, especially. So I don't think it was necessarily easy, but I do
No, no,
think
no.
stylistically they gave him a matchup that favors his skill set, like you said.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
like but also he's not a top five guy in the weight class.
right.
So he's not immediately he's being given a chance to come in. He wins this fight. They can rank him in the top 15. And then he fights 13. I'm not sure where Holland. We'll go look up where Kevin Holland's
I'm
ranked.
looking at him now.
Yeah, you just let me
He's
know
beat
where.
some good guys, man.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah,
Kevin Holland's had moments, but like I said, and at times he saved the show. He looked
right.
like he could be somebody, And then he had the Cerrone bug where he fought, 4 or 5 times in a year and stuff like that. But there's been a drop off. He's taken some losses. His star is not very shiny anymore. He might be
Yeah,
ranked between 8 and 10, which
he's
is a
lost
softer
three
touch.
of his last five fights.
Then he's not
Yeah,
even ranked
he's
between 8 and 10. He may
yeah,
he may even have fallen out of the top 15.
yeah.
See if we can look that up. So Venom Page is somebody that he'll probably be favored in the fight.
Yeah. It'll be an exciting fight, though. I think because of the matchup, I think they found someone where they're like, these two guys will give us a good matchup.
Yeah,
They'll perform.
Kevin Holland right now is ranked number 15, and that's exactly what I was talking. So Venom Page beats him. He comes in 15, fight 13. Very, very different treatment than Chandler Alvarez got. So and you could argue that Venom Page, in terms of star power, up there with Eddie, probably maybe even better than Chandler, although Chandler was champion, but Chandler, Eddie had that career. Eddie had charisma. Eddie had a little bit of and he'd been around before. He'd been all over the world and fought already. Where Chandler, came up from wrestling and was at Bellator only. So, and Venom Page, being British and doing his thing and stuff like that, you could argue that Venom Page was a bigger star at Bellator than Chandler was, even though Chandler's a better fighter and had better pedigree. So Venom Page is getting a little bit of a softer touch than the other guys, and yeah, I think Kevin Holland's being sent out there probably to lose. He's 4-5 in his last 3 years.
You guys got any other questions? We should do this like on a weekend, like or something, right? Earlier in the day. Kind of
Yeah,
let people know when we're gonna do
yeah.
it.
Well, why don't we, you know, slate something for like a Sunday afternoon, maybe a Sunday afternoon, you know, or yeah, Sunday afternoon is good, especially now that there's no NFL.
Yeah.
We might be able to get some different eyes and stuff, and we could talk all day.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
All right, guys. Well, I want to thank Celso, Mike Green, anybody else that popped up in there that chatted with us, especially Celso, who actually put up some money completely unexpected. I think I can speak for Todd that we really don't do this for the money, so we'll probably just reinvest this into the show in some way, shape, or form. Maybe you can see that we both have headphones now and stuff like that. So we're doing little things, and it all helps. And
Also got me back. I've been sponsoring his daughter in wrestling for a few
okay,
years and
okay, that's
got
and
him
and
into
that's
some
that's the kind
UFC shows, theater shows.
and that's the kind of thing that Todd doesn't ask for any credit for and doesn't
Yeah,
get any credit, but Todd is a man of the people, a guy who backs up.
man of the people. Yeah,
Yeah, you are a man of the people,
his
man.
daughter is she's in her weight class. She's the best wrestler in Oklahoma.
Yep,
She
yep.
wins. She wins everything all the time, pretty much.
Do you think that Ariel Helwani sponsors the guy who's the best wrestler in Canada, the best female wrestler in Canada?
No, no.
I don't think so. No, and I'll give you another one. I don't even know this has been made public because Todd's doesn't do this for the publicity, but um, back a few years ago when former UFC stud and we talked about the Lions Den, Mikey Burnett got shot.
Hmm.
Todd helped him out. Todd showed up at his hotel. I'm sorry, at the hospital
Hospital. Yeah.
with a little envelope with cash and stuff like that
Mhm.
to help him out. And
Yep.
that's the kind of stuff that Todd doesn't do for the publicity and stuff, but that's what makes Todd a superhero and a guy that I'm proud to work with. So I want to thank Todd. I want to thank all you guys out there for following us, and thank you very much for all this. This is a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah, we'll
So
build it up. Hopefully, I mean, I see a lot of other people do it, and we haven't been doing live stuff, but Miguel, as you have watched these shows, he's got a lot of knowledge on a lot of stuff from all those years of he's put into the game, and so I think when we have a show on in the afternoon or whatever, where there's more people, there's a lot of stuff he could get into.
yep, I'd like to get to the point where we can't keep up with the chat, which like is going on and is just zooming by so fast that we're trying to catch, and we just can do shout outs and things like that. That'd be a lot of fun too. So,
I don't
so,
know if
so
I'd want to do
everybody,
that. If it's going by too
well,
fast, that'd be irritating. But
a
yeah,
little irritating, but it's also a good sign that we're doing the right thing and that actually people are listening. So, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to meet you, Mike Green. Thank you, great input, and we'll catch you guys later.
yeah, appreciate it.